Welcome everyone to the Nerd Nook. I'm your host Evan Tiga. With me, like always, is Noah Bailey. So today we are going to do a thing that Noah suggested. I thought was a great idea, where we are going to go over our top 10 movie theater regrets. Now, a movie theater regret might be a movie that we were really excited for, but ended up being not very good. Something that we knew was going to be bad, but ended up being bad in a different way. I have one in here that it's a movie that I wish I had seen in theaters, but ended up not actually like literally regretted not watching it in a theater because it was I just liked it that much. I wish I had actually supported it in a theater instead. There's a lot of different ways this can go. I'm sure there's going to be many stories behind why we regretted watching these. Um, so since it was your idea, I want you to get us rolling.
Sure. Okay. So my first movie is one I don't think you saw. I doubt you saw this movie. This came out fairly recently. It's called Civil War, not the obviously not the
Yeah.
MCU version. But so basically it's like a like realistic fiction-ish where basically the countries, there's another civil war happens in the US in 2020, whatever. The country's basically split in half. They're going to war with each other. And it's a very serious, gritty, dark topic. And it's one of those movies where you watch the trailer and then you watch the movie and you say these things aren't the same thing
Oh,
because
oh.
the trailer sets it up as it's like you're gonna see it, you're gonna be in it, you're gonna find out, man, what are the motivations for this side? What are the motivations for that side? Who's right? Who's wrong? What's going on? What are how is this
Mhm.
affecting the people? And the movie does not explain anything.
Really?
I have never I'm in this theater, and again, it got to the point where we're like talking to other people in the movie theater, and one person
Like, did
goes
you?
like, and I kid you not, like an hour and a half into the movie, one guy just goes, "Why are they fighting?" And everyone kind of was like, "Yeah, I don't know," because it's kind of like we're kind of again. This is a pretty. I think the movie was like 2:15 or something like that. Like pretty decent sized movie.
Okay.
A lot happens, and there's some very intense moments, but it's very like it's one of those things where a lot is happening, but it's never explained. All that's explained is these people are fighting. And it's kind of okay. So, and how it works is basically you have the perspective of a journalist, and they're like traveling journalists covering the story or whatever. Which, like, I kind of get, from their perspective, they're not in the war rooms, they don't understand anything. But I mean, it's not like we
Mhm.
couldn't have got like a 5 minute news update on what happened or anything. Like, I mean, it really just like, yeah, the countries hate each other. Like, it's been going on for years. We're just going around. And again, you get to the end of the movie
Mhm.
they just kind of don't resolve anything. The war doesn't really end. It kind of just, I mean, it kind of does, but kind of doesn't. It's kind of weird. Like,
Okay.
I mean, it's spoiler for anyone who cares. Which plus, I mean, they end up overthrowing the president at the time, but I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, it's kind of like I don't know. It kind of feels
So,
like they're kind of just doing stuff. There's no real. I don't. It's like one of those movies that's supposed to make a point, but you're kind of like, hey, you forgot to make your point,
uh,
and then it's just kind of over. And it's weird too because online you have these people who just praise this movie. It's like, oh, it's beautifully shot. Oh, it's such a great
mhm.
message. And like everyone who watched the movie is like, I don't get it. Like I don't
So,
like. It's one of those like somebody basically said like, it's one of those movies that unless you're a film major, you think it's garbage. And it's kind of like
one of
I
those.
feel
Yeah,
like
I see. Mhm.
yeah, and it's kind of
Mhm.
like I feel like that's just like like if food only tastes good if I'm a chef, I don't think it's that good of food kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, especially if you're gonna make it a big box office for everybody movie, but I don't know. It just I didn't really want to see it going in. I had a friend who really wanted to see it, and I was kind of like, okay, you know what? This looks
Mhm.
interesting. The trailer sold me. It looks interesting. I could go for an action movie. It's one of those movies where like it's action, but not around anyone you're following. The action's like in the background, and it's kind of like, oh. That's like 90% of the reason I'm here. And it's
Yeah,
like,
kind of. I have kind of two thoughts right now. First, there's not a moment where there's like a 5 or so minute montage at the beginning just explaining what happened. That's like textbook
it's
101 how you start a movie.
that's what everyone's kind of saying. Like, it literally just kind of starts, and you kind of like get bits and pieces in the background, like, oh yeah, these guys been fighting forever. Oh yeah, this state and that state led their own revolutions, which again doesn't make any sense because the state they're fighting each other. I'm like, ah. But or the state they're teaming up. I'm kind of like, I don't see that going well in real life, but what's a movie?
Wasn't it
Whatever.
like
But it's
California
kind of
and Texas like
yes,
seceded? No,
yes,
what?
like working together, which I was kind of like, okay, I'll allow it. Like whatever, it's a movie. It's made up. It's fine.
It's
Like,
complete fiction. Why not?
well, basically, I was like, well, it's fiction. That would totally happen. But I mean, like, it's one of those things where it kind of just it expects you to kind of just go with it, and it's kind of like, okay, but like, why? Like, I don't like it. I don't know. It just kind of didn't make a lot of sense. It's one of those things. And again, like online, people are like, oh, it's made clear it's because the president stayed in office. It's like, okay, but like, what'd he do?
Why did he stay in office? Did he feel like he had
it's like,
to?
okay,
Like
what, like you gotta give me more than that. Like, I mean, like, I'm not saying that's okay, obviously, but it's kind of like, okay, you gotta give me like, you're like, oh, the president did something, and then now we're Civil War, we're running it back. Apparently, it's just like, okay. Which again, I get that's the name of the movie. I get the war is more the setting than the story, I guess. But I feel like that's A, it's very misleading trailer. B, just
yeah. And the way you described it, it sounds a lot like Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, where did you ever watch any of the Hunger Games movies?
I honestly I did Mockingjay 1 and then kind of just dropped off after that. I'm not gonna lie.
Because they they split it into 2 movies, and like a lot happens in the book. And it's one of those things where, like, because it's a book, you can kind of give more detailed explanation as to what is going on and kind of let the reader imagine it. But because it's a movie, what you're showing is what's happening. And I was thinking, oh, because they split it in 2, the second one is gonna like delve more into the actual conflict going on, because even in the book, the majority of the time is you following Katniss and this like crew of like basically like it's like they're making a documentary of Katniss's revolution, like her going behind enemy lines, like going directly toward the capital. Like there's obviously obstacles in the way and stuff, but like not a lot of like direct war is happening directly where they are. And I was kind of hoping that because you have technically more movie time between both movies, they would be able to show that more in the second part, but not really. Instead, it's just kind of boring. So it kind of reminds me of that similar vibe where you don't really know why it's happening. Nothing super interesting is happening in front of you, and it just kind of happens and then ends. Like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the thing. It's just kind of like it feels like you said, like it feels so textbook to be like, hey, this big conflict, let's like, explain it, give a rundown, do this and that. And I don't know if it's because they want to stand out or try something new, but it's just kind of like, yeah, we just don't do that. We're kind of just here for a different purpose. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like watching an Avengers movie from like the perspective of like a civilian running away, which like sounds like a decent concept for like 10 minutes, but doing that for 2 hours sounds really boring.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the best way to describe it. Because again, they're not they're like around the battles and then like stuff pops off and they're just kind of there and then they run, which like I get it, but it's also like this isn't really interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was a choice. I mean, not for me. And again, I didn't.
You were dragged there.
Saw it. Yeah, it was. I mean, I agreed to go at the time because I believed I was going to see something different. But The trailer was one of the more misleading trailers I've seen in a while, for sure.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Well, my number 10 is a movie I kind of alluded to where I didn't see it in theaters. Really wish I had, so I regret not watching it in theaters. That movie being Dune Part 1.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of those movies that was during COVID where they released it on HBO Max at the same time as theaters. There were a couple of movies that my brother and I saw in theaters during that time, but a lot of them we just watched on HBO Max. Like The Suicide Squad, we saw in theaters, but that might have been it. But regardless, like Dune Part 1, after watching, is like, wow, I wish I had seen that in theaters. Not only is it incredible, so I wish I could financially support it as opposed to just streaming it for free. Also, my TV is not big enough for me to fully appreciate what's going on.
Yeah. And the surround sound, like the theater sound, like every worm scene just sounds so crazy with the like full theater experience. Like it feels like the world is rumbling. It's pretty awesome.
Yes, so I made certain opening weekend I watched Dune Part 2. It was incredible.
Yep.
Like, easily a top 5 movie I've seen this year, and it's not 4 or 5. Like, it is very, very good.
It is really good. I mean, the first one's definitely more exposition heavy, but again, I like that because I'm entering a new world and I need to know what's going on and why people walk like sideways through the desert. So I like it. Yeah.
So yeah, I literally regret. That's the only movie in here that I regret not watching in theaters. All the others I paid money and was annoyed that I did.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that's a good. I didn't think about that, but I think that's a good way of putting it. Also, like having it the other way around. Like I regret not seeing it. I'm excited. Like I would have a couple of those, so that's cool.
Okay. You're number 9.
Okay, so next one, number 9, I have is Cruella, which again was another movie that was not originally not my choice, but it was kind of one of those. Okay, it's been a while since we got to see a movie, and just like, man, we're really watching this, aren't we?
I guess that beats spending $30 for it on Disney Plus. So that's something.
Yes, but it's like the main problem I have with this movie is because the movie doesn't know what kind of movie it wants to be. Because
absolutely not.
they're like the movie. They're trying to do like 3 different movies. Like they're trying to do like The Devil Wears Prada and Now You See Me and like something else. Like it's so weird because they're like doing this like weird. They're trying to be like these hustler heist people. But then like halfway through they decide, oh, you know what? I'm gonna spend like 40 minutes of the movie just doing like fashion stuff for some reason, and then also I'm doing something out like there's another one in there. I remember it was 3 movies I said it was trying to be, and I forget what the third one was, but there's another part where she's doing like this like revenge plot thing. And it's like this whole thing just thrown together. And again, this is about the lady who just the mean lady with the Dalmatian movies. Like we don't like. Yeah. Again, I don't really like making these like villain or like you can just have bad people. Like it's okay. Like you don't have to have these like super deep origins because they're trying to like half humanize her, but then like halfway through she's just like, like you never at any point are like, oh, she's great. You're like, no, she kind of sucks from the jump. But I mean, I don't know. It's like
she sucks, but she's not evil. By the end of the movie, she's not like the point of the character in the original Dalmatian story is that she loves real animal fur, and she goes out of her way to wear exotic animal fur.
Yeah. Which she doesn't even do until like it's implied at the very end. It's like her dog, like the lady she hates has Dalmatian. So it's not even like I hate animals. It's like I just hate these specific dogs, which like I guess that's not as bad. I mean, it's still kind of messed up, but it's not like I just hate anything that has fur.
At the very, very end of the movie, like they tease the dogs that then become the dogs that that are in the original story. Like so,
So poorly done.
which I don't think the timeline works at all because I feel like
No,
Cruella's character is a lot older than the main characters of those movies, so I feel like those dogs will not last that. Whatever.
no. I mean, I guess it's an older movie, so it's hard to tell how old adult characters are really supposed to be. But still, it's like she seems older.
Yeah. And not to mention, I love Emma Stone, but she could not keep that accent consistent for that movie. It was not great.
There were a lot of inconsistencies, like getting in the car and the steering wheel's not on like the right instead of the left because you're in London, not in America, and like I
Mhm.
don't know. There's a lot of I don't know. There's a lot of stuff where you're just kind of like, I mean,
Yeah, and like there was exactly one moment where they had like the zoomed in camera her doing this, but it felt very forced. It was like, oh, we that was in the original thing,
agree.
so we gotta do it here. It's like it doesn't.
Yep,
Yeah,
that doesn't.
pointless movie, absolutely pointless.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, and again, there's a lot of those where it's kind of like, why? Yeah, like why? Like I don't. I get like, I mean, they're trying to get money. I understand it. It's like you gotta do whatever you gotta do to do that, but it's also kind of like, why are we making all these? Like again, I don't understand live action remakes, but especially these like when they were going on this like villain origin story, like
Mhm.
Hair for some reason that just like I
Yeah,
don't need to explain why everyone's evil. A lot of people are just
yeah.
evil.
At least Maleficent like kind of tried to do something unique with the character. It wasn't. It at least like somewhat had a purpose. But this movie, I don't. It was like they wanted to tell, like you said, at least three different stories and just use Cruella as the vehicle for that. And like, make your
Yeah.
own movie, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Yes. Yeah, it's like like I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
yeah, not great.
No.
But
Very glad
again,
when I watched that, it was already free on Disney Plus. I was not going to pay money for
yes,
that.
no, do not pay money for that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember Disney Plus was doing this like because that was like that Mulan and like something else. It was like,
Raya the Lost
oh, is
Dragon,
it?
which is also
Yeah, it's like,
fine.
oh, pay $30 for it now, or wait
Black
like a
Widow.
month and then it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like nobody's gonna do that. Like no one's gonna.
Mm-hmm.
They're no. Like
Black
that's
Widow's a fine
pointless.
movie, but how is that $30? But Dune is free? Are you kidding me?
Well, it's like if any movie's coming out free, I mean, I'm not paying for unless it was like. I mean, my thing is like unless it was like the newest event, like Endgame, right after Infinity War, no one's gonna pay money to see it first because like nobody cares. But like it's gonna be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So my number nine is another Disney live action thing.
Okay.
Lion King 2019. I had no intention of watching this movie in theaters. Lion
You
King
hated
is
it.
an easily top three favorite movie of all time. Any given day, it could be number one. Like, that was one of the first movies I ever saw. It just, the music of that movie is phenomenal. The animation holds up to this day. Like, almost every single aspect of that movie from 1994, I think. Yeah, 1994 is phenomenal, a near perfect product. So then, obviously, like when it was announced that Disney was doing all these live action remakes and this was announced, I was like, oh, that's like, why are you doing this?
Terrible.
Like, so just it's going to make money, but it's not going to be a good movie. I just know that in my bones. Like, I don't want to see this. But then our mom really wanted to see it, and my mother and I both reluctantly agreed. And you know that feeling when you're watching a movie And the opening shot is just wrong.
It's gonna be a long 2 hours.
Yeah, like the original movie, we say that a lot. The original movie starts just like has the like a couple of titles and stuff, and then just like cuts to black. And then when the song starts, like the sun rises, like fills the entire screen with light, and like
So
it's just
cool.
so such an epic start to your movie. Not to mention, just that whole sequence just uses the fact that it's just a very colorful, very vibrant movie.
All
This
the
movie,
animals.
just this movie, it starts on like a solid 5 seconds of just like a nighttime prairie, but you can still see everything. It like sits there for an uncomfortably long amount of time. And then the sun rises off center. The focus of the shot is not the sun rising, which is the whole point of that. Anyway. I was just like, so I'm just sitting there for way longer than I've any like. When's it coming? Then it comes like, oh, it's over there. Okay, and then because it's in this like because the entire movie has this weird like brown saturation to it, none of the like nothing like pops, nothing really stands out as like yeah, they look good, but like I could just be watching Nature Channel and have the same effect. Like when it says the lines and stepping out into the light or stepping out into the sun, whatever, like the giraffe literally steps out of the shade into the light. They kind of recreate that shot, but just the way this movie is like is contrasted. They don't even look that dark. They just kind of walk. They're just kind of walking. They don't like. There's no like like deliberance to it. It's just they just do it, and like every single like iconic moment just feels very stiff. Whenever the lions are speaking, it just I don't feel any emotion on their face. The fact that um they completely butchered Be Prepared. Originally, they were like, "Oh, we're just not even gonna have the song of the movie for some reason." And then I guess very late in production, they kind of added it, but like Scar's doing this monologue, and then he kind of like starts talking in a rhythm, and then music cuts in a little bit, and then he like says "Be prepared," and then the scene ends. I was like, why even have any of that at all if you're not gonna
Yeah,
do
if you're not
it?
gonna do it, and again, in a musical, how are you gonna only allude to a song that you're not gonna do? It's like either do it or don't. Like I don't. If I do it or don't, I mean do it.
Yeah,
Like,
like that's arguably the best song in the whole movie, and I
well,
understand completely that like there's no possible way any way they could do that sequence would even come close to how it is in the original, just because that is easily the scene in the original movie that uses the color at his best. Like just use the fact that it's a cartoon very effectively, whereas here like nothing that happened in that original sequence could happen here because it's supposed to be a live, realistic live action. Like that can't happen. So there's no point to even attempt any of it if you're not going to do it. If you're like whatever. So yeah, just the entire time, just no, literally no single aspect of this movie did I find enjoyable in the slightest. I couldn't even like appreciate it for being realistic because it didn't fit. Since it is just a word for word remake of the original, it's like, yeah, you got James Earl Jones back, but he's doing the same words, but sounding 25 years older, so it just sounds worse.
yes, so much of that with a lot of these. It's just like, why are we doing this again? Like, what was the point of this? But
No, yeah, like I Yeah, I didn't spend my own money on my mom spent her money on it. So
Oh,
like
okay.
that's
Well,
why it's no higher up because I didn't choose to see it.
slightly less regret. No,
Yeah.
that's so real because yeah, you're kind of like, oh well, at least I didn't buy it, so I don't care as
Yeah.
much, but like I
Yeah.
should.
So technically speaking, the regret level is lower, even though like as far as movies I like, it should be way movies I dislike should be it will be like way higher up on the list, competing with some we'll talk about later. But like I guess regret technically like by the rules of what we're going on, it's only number 9, but it is a movie I do not care for in the slightest.
No, and that's totally fair. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I feel like you definitely knew going in you weren't gonna like it just because I mean you're such you love the original as you
Mm-hmm.
should and you're kind of just like okay anything else you're kind of like this is not gonna go well so I understand that but it's also like I mean I just that's kind of how I feel about all these live action remakes of the good movies that don't need to be remade is kind of like
Mm-hmm.
what are we doing? The best we can
Yep.
hope for is slightly worse versions of the original, and more likely we're just going to get genuinely worse versions of the original.
Uh-huh.
Same with like Avatar, all these things are doing, and I kind of, it is what it is. But
Sure.
I don't know. It's interesting, but people, it still made money because it had the name on it. So
Until this summer, it was the highest grossing animated movie of all time. Until Inside Out
yeah.
2 of all things knocked it out.
Yeah, which again,
Like,
I'm kind of like, I mean, I get it's like, how are you the Lion King live action, but also the highest grossing animated movie of all time? You know what I mean? Like, what are the
yeah.
rules? Like who decides this? Like, are you
Like,
animated or are you live
like,
action? You
oh,
can't be
because
both
over
unless
50% of
you're.
it was CGI, that means that it's animated. Like, the landscapes were shot on, were actual landscapes they capture. Like, I, I don't
But
know.
it's like, I mean, like, what is this? Like Looney Tunes back in action? Like, you can't be both.
A
Like,
great movie.
that's
A
both.
really good movie.
Yes, no, it is. Agreed. But like that, like you said, like that or Space Jam or something like that. I'm like, yes, that's live action and animated. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
This is all the same thing. Like, you just gotta pick one with this. I
Yes.
don't. And if you're gonna call it the live action remake, you gotta. I mean, how is it animated? I don't. I don't. What are the rules? I don't.
Yeah,
It's fine.
and I deeply hope with every fiber of my being that Sonic 3 obliterates Mufasa the Lion King. I want them to
Mufasa's not gonna
cease
make
this.
it. First of all, again, the only thing that people didn't ask for more than origin stories of Disney villains is origin stories of Disney dead parents. Because
Right?
nobody, like, respectfully, nobody cares. It doesn't matter. Mufasa's origin is incredibly irrelevant. It does not matter. All we need to know is he was a great king. That is it. Like, that is
Mhm.
it. That's all. Like, any other information arguably could ruin his character because
Right.
it does. Like, if we find out Mufasa's not this great dude, all of a sudden Simba's stressed out over basically nothing. It's like, hey man, it wasn't that big a deal. Mufasa wasn't that great. So now it's kind of like, what are we doing? What are we, like? Why are we going to potentially risk making this worse? Like, I don't.
Or like they're gonna try to humanize Scar and make his origin all weird. Like I don't. No, stop it.
Again,
Just
why?
I don't
He's
know.
just evil. He's a lion that's supposed to be black, but isn't for some reason. And then we're just gonna like it. He's just evil. It's fine. We don't have to like. I mean, not every villain has to be explained. I understand. In real life, there are complex reasons why people may do or may believe what they do, whatever. But at the same time, it's a Disney movie for children.
Mm-hmm.
There are good guys and bad guys. That is all.
That's all.
It's not that deep. It's a Disney movie with singing jungle animal or jungle safari, savannah, and I don't know what the word is.
Mm-hmm.
And singing animals that talk and make jokes and make fart jokes. It's not that deep. Like we don't have to get philosophical about it, but here we are.
Yeah, they already made the perfect movie back in 1994. They didn't need to redo it, and when they did remake it, it was just a wholly worse product.
Yes, like you're not gonna make a better version of one of the best animated movies. That's not how
Mhm.
things work.
Yeah.
You don't just. I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those things I just don't understand. 'Cause it's just kind of like,
Mm,
what was the goal here? What were
make
we trying
money,
to do?
make money, and
Yeah,
they
I mean,
did.
yes. Okay, yeah. I mean, okay. Dumb question. Okay, yeah, dumb. That's on me. That's on me.
It
I get
shouldn't have,
that,
but
but
it
I guess
did.
it's yeah. I mean, it's one of those. I don't know. I just
Yeah. Yeah. Let's move on to your number 8.
yeah.
We'll talk about it for a
Let's
while if we don't move on.
yeah. Okay. Sorry. We'll move right along. I am just oh man. Okay, sorry. Okay. So my next movie is I don't know how you feel about James Bond movies, but my next movie is the most recent James Bond movie, No
Oh yeah,
Time
you
to
told me about
Die.
this. Yeah.
So again, I love James Bond movies. I love Daniel Craig. I think he does a great James Bond.
Mhm.
I love all the other James Bond movies he's in. I do not love this James Bond movie he is in for two reasons.
Wait, would you even like Quantum of Solace?
Well, I mean, I like it more than this.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
I guess Quantum Sauce. I mean, Quantum Sauce is fine. Again, it's not
Yeah.
my like. Again, I feel like it's like what, like Spectre, like Casino Royale, Spectre. Um, well,
Skyfall, then
Skyfall. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. This one's at the bottom.
that's
I
all
know
that
that.
matters. Yeah, I'm just okay.
This one's at the
Sorry.
bottom. We can rank James Bond movies on another podcast, maybe. But like, so my biggest, actually, it's actually funny because I originally wasn't gonna go see this in theaters. I was just gonna kind of wait
Mhm.
for it to come out on whatever streaming service. And one of my buddies was like, "Hey, dude, so I want to talk to you about something, but I can't talk to you about it until you watch this movie." And I was kind of like, I don't know what that means, but okay. So we go to the theater, we watch the movie, I'm enjoying it, get them out. I'm like, and I'm remembering this. Okay, yeah, so these guys are in it. Okay, this, that, that. And,
Mhm.
we go through it, and I'm still thinking, I'm like, I wonder what he was wondering. And then we get to the ending.
Mhm.
And the ending is so weird. And he just, like, and then I look at him, and I was like, this was it. He's like, oh, yeah, this was the part. And, like, and I'm sitting in the theater. So for those who don't know,
Mhm.
basically this movie ends. James Bond basically decides to die for some reason.
Well, I thought it was
Like
no time to die.
no, I mean it's so weird because like again, there's plenty of time to not die,
Oh.
and there's multiple ways to in fact not die. But he like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, there's no chance for me to be with this person I love. So there's no reason to live, which is so weird because hey, you're James Bond. This is literally just like one of like a billion girls you've been with.
You bagged
Just
Ava Green back in your first movie. Like,
you
come
died.
on,
Like I'm
lady.
like,
Come on.
if that was her, okay. But like, I mean, well, my thing is like again, it's like again, you're literally James Bond. That's like half your thing. Is like, yeah, there's a new girl every movie. That's like
Uh-huh.
literally like a trope. It's weird if it's not like that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like
Mhm.
while I understand people having feelings, I don't understand James Bond having these feelings because he's James Bond. That's not in character, like at all. And also too, like James Bond doesn't give up. Like, what is that? Like,
Right?
that's so lame. Like, that's so lame. Like, it's so weird to watch showing how you go through. Like, and again, I'm not usually a person to be like the ending completely ruins a movie for me, but it does here for me. I'm sorry. Like, it
Yeah.
just. I mean, he just kind of decides to die, and it's like there was plenty of time. Hugh's like, "Okay, James, how are we gonna do it?" He's like, "Not this time." He's like, what? And we're all just kind of like, what? Like, what are you talking about, dude?
So,
Let's
like,
go.
if it was a situation where he had to sacrifice himself in order to for some greater good or whatever, like that'd be one thing. But because he just doesn't move,
No,
he just gets blown
I
up
mean
or
that's
whatever.
the
Like,
thing. It's like he basically was the equivalent of I don't want to get a new girlfriend, so I'm just gonna die. It's like what?
mhm.
after all you've been through, that's how we're doing. Like again, like I don't. It's so, and again, it's one of the like it was Daniel Craig's send off movie, and it's like it's.
Mhm.
I think this was 2021. I think this was not too long after like a lot of other send offs with like
Yeah.
Avengers movies and stuff like that. So it was kind of like I'm not sure exactly what they were going for, but it was very like what like why would you like I have
Mhm.
to like again yes like it was one of those things too where like it's not like oh James and then you just see an explosion off screen and then like later he's like sipping a martini and driving away like
Yeah.
as James Bond does. It was like you
Mhm.
saw his body as it blew up and it was kind of just like
Cool.
oh well that's stupid
Like they easily could have pulled a Dark Knight Returns, but instead they just actually,
Oh,
yeah.
1,000%. Like I
Mhm.
half expected it. Like I was kind of like, okay, well James Bond can't die, so
Right.
but
Like
it's the
it
end. Like
almost
because
feels like
like
the way you're describing it, it almost feels like they were writing the movie as if it weren't Daniel Craig's last movie, and then last second he was like, "Oh, my contract's up. I don't want to do more of these," and then they just decided it was time.
it's so weird because there's no like sense of like this is my last like like as a real person I have heard that Daniel Craig has said I am done after
Mm.
this, but it's kind of like you know how in Logan you kind of knew going in he was gonna like we knew
Yeah.
what we were getting into.
Yeah.
This was like the opposite of that. Like there was no like you knew, or it's not the opposite, but it's like you knew Daniel Craig outwardly was like this is probably my movie, but like it's not like he's the first person to play James Bond. Like other people have done their last James Bond movie, and
Mm.
spoiler alert, James Bond doesn't die in those movies. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like I don't know. Like, I mean, it kind of feels like it's like, is this like you're telling us you're retiring James Bond the character forever? Like, is this like
Yeah. Huh.
happening? Like,
That
I
is
don't
an
know.
interesting
Like, it's
choice
so
because
confusing.
up until that point, it's the implication is that every James Bond is just the same person, kind of technically, because
Yeah.
the villain of Spectre is like the same person who was the villain of the first James Bond movie, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And he talks to James as if he's
James,
the
like, we've
same
been
guy.
doing this
Like,
forever. Yeah.
yeah,
Which I mean, I kind of like it that way. Because I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm very iffy on what characters where it's like the name's the title more than the actual person's name, which like the whole like Sir Roberts thing from like Princess Bride or whatever, where
yeah.
it's kind of like oh yeah, eventually, but it's like
But like the ambiguity is gone now because this one's dead, so you have to start over with
yeah,
completely new character, like from the ground up. There's no way you can reference anything in the past now. Like I feel that's, I don't love that.
yeah, I don't really, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. It's just kind
Mm.
of weird because
It
yeah,
also
I don't,
kind of
it just
reminds me. Sorry, are you?
no, keep
Yeah,
going.
the from how you described it, it kind of reminds me of how John Wick 4 went, where like the entire time it didn't really feel like a send off movie, and then he just like it felt earned enough, but it's not how I personally would have wanted John Wick to go, but like it didn't ruin the movie for me necessarily, necessarily, but like I maybe would have appreciated like a couple of moments throughout that like gave more of an implication that this was the last one, as opposed to him just I don't know, you feeling a little anticlimactic at the very end for him just kind of be dead, supposedly, probably, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It just kind of I don't, again, I'm sure this again, as a movie is, there's always like, oh, people online, oh, you didn't understand. This is for his character, and it's like, again,
Mm,
I'm not a film major. I don't study movies for a living, but as just a guy who really likes movies and likes James Bond movies,
yeah.
I'm kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like it just
Mhm.
feels very off, and it kind of just Yeah, I don't know. And immediately after I was talking to my friend, I was like, "Man, I see why I need to see this movie to understand." Because I was like, again, that's the first time I've seen a movie just to have a conversation, but like it was, I totally understand why I did. So I guess my regrets, I guess this is kind of a hard one because like I don't necessarily regret going to see it because it very much helped me understand and had a good conversation about it. But it's like, I guess had the movie already been out on like streaming or something, I would have saved the money and just like watched it there, or maybe just just heard more about it. But it was just kind of like, wow, this is. I
Yeah.
was very underwhelmed and kind of upset with how this ended.
Hmm. Yeah. It was definitely a regrettable way to end the movie. And over. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. My number 8 is Cars 2. Um, as someone who didn't even really love the first Cars movie, I'm not really sure why I went to see the second one. Maybe it's a thing where like my parents wanted to go see a movie and this was just out at around the same time. So we were like, you two go see this, so we see this. So like that. We did that a couple of times. Um, oh boy, this movie, even as a kid, I did not like it. Like, when you're a kid, you're impressed by almost everything. This movie just did not, like, none of the. I found it not enjoyable in the slightest. Like, I first of all, Mater, even as a kid, I didn't love his character. I didn't think he was funny. I didn't really like him just in general. So this whole movie being about him was not my cup of tea. Just how brutally some of the cars get absolutely murdered in this movie is, like, as a kid, like, kind of affected me. Like, this is a rated G movie, and they're like the cars getting like crunched into cubes, or like
Wait, really?
viciously explode. Have you ever seen Cars 2?
No.
Oh, really? Sorry.
But
Oh, okay. Sorry.
no, I mean, no, you're good. You're good. It's okay. No,
Um,
I mean, I'm not. I mean, I'm probably not going to
it,
watch it, but no, tell me all about
yeah,
it.
like it's like it's the parts that aren't about racing.
Like a spy movie,
It's
really?
like a spy. It's basically a Cars James Bond movie type thing, and because they're cars, I guess they feel like they can get away with more stuff. Like there's a couple of times when the villains are interrogating, like, other spies. Like the villain people are interrogating other spy cars, and in order to try to get information out of them, they're like hitting them with this laser beam that's somehow interacting with the oil that's inside of them, that's like basically bubbling them to the inside, that's gonna like make them explode if they don't talk. And they never do, so they either explode or like they get sent into a trash compactor and get like packed into cubes, and like it's a lot. um and Mater, uh, they do this thing where that I absolutely despise in movies, where the main character like lies his way into a situation, and then he just like kind of has to go along with it, and then all the other characters are like, oh, like he's playing dumb, and that's what makes him so good at this, when really he's just being an idiot. And then it's not until like almost the end is it like revealed that he's actually a liar, and then the main female interest is like, you lied to me, you're the worst. And then,
I can't believe this. You're fake. Yeah.
yeah, then he has to come back and save the day or whatever. Like, it's just not, and wasn't enjoyable. Like the racing parts I thought were actually pretty dynamic, but then the spy parts kind of got in the way of it. It's just, yeah,
Mm.
it's not great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, again, Disney sequels these days, especially then, it's like, could be really good, could be really bad, and
Yeah.
it's kind of just we'll have to see. This is definitely
Mhm.
more of the latter.
Yeah. But in Cars 3, when it went back to being almost entirely just about the racing, was actually better. I really love it because it's still a Cars
So did
movie, but
I.
like it's still, I think, a better movie by a wide margin than Cars 2 was. So,
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, who would have thought if you make the movie about what it's supposed to be about, it
hmm
does well. Like,
yeah.
shocker, apparently. But
Yeah. But once again, because it was my parents' money, it's not going to be much higher. I just really did not like this movie.
yeah, no, and that's fair. I mean, yeah, I mean Cars 2 is notably one of the worst.
It is. What there was a word I used when my roommate and I we had like a Pixar binge sometime last year. After watching it, I think I said that was an unfortunate movie. I think that's the word I used.
Fortunate.
What an
Yeah,
unfortunate movie. Or something like that.
yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay. Number 7.
Okay, so my number 7 is another unfortunate Pixar movie.
hmm
It's like I got Monsters University number 7.
I had that up there. Like it's at number 11. It was there at number 10. Like not seeing Dune, I think knocks it off. But Monsters Inc. was still not. Oh, I hate that movie a lot. It
Yeah,
was not
it's
good.
again one of those things that does not need to be explained, and then trying to explaining it makes it infinitely worse.
Yep.
Like, why? Like, again, like I get Monsters Inc. did a great job. They did. I get it. It's a great movie. I love it. There's a great concept. Everything's cool.
Mhm.
You naturally would think, all right, let's continue this story. Let's do this. It's like, oh, we should let's talk about their origins. Like, okay, like, yeah, but like make them go to college. I'm not liking where this is going.
No.
And then make it not about like anything related to what they actually like. Again, the like 2-minute montage at the end of the movie. That's
Mhm.
what the movie should have been about,
Right? And like the
like,
fact that the entire movie is about Mike really wanting to prove himself as a scarer when we, the audience, know that he is not a career scarer. Why should we care by the end that he isn't a scare? Like, we already knew that was going to be the outcome, so why make that what the movie is?
and again, like I guess, and my thing about it too is kind of like, yeah, like we're trying to force a lot of the stuff we're not interested in. We're trying to like humanize, oh Randall, and oh we're trying to like we're doing all
Mhm.
the things that we don't need, like trying to like explain things, but then not
Mhm.
explain them. Make more questions than answers by giving more information, and
Yeah.
like it's like I just don't. And again, like the part I feel like people were more interested in is like how they started up as scarers, which again doesn't really get explained.
Mhm.
It just kind of happens, and like, what I mean. It's like a montage that could have been in the first movie. It's just kind of like
Like,
I don't know.
a couple of things. First, the fact that they start in the mailroom when Sully's dad was a career scarer. So, like, I feel like if Monsters Inc. is hiring on Sully, they're not going to hire him on in the mailroom,
Oh, yeah, I
Just like,
don't.
I think nepotism would allow him to move up a little quicker than that. And also, just the university itself is just so uncreative. It's like, oh, they play football, but like they play in the same way that we do, but like because they play in the same way that we do, they're not going to account for the fact that monsters are different sizes. So yeah, that giant one's just going to win every game he's on the team of. Like that's so boring. Like they would be playing a different game.
Yeah, or like yeah, college would be entirely different. Like it was just like the design was really like it's just a regular
Just
college
college.
with monsters in it. There's no like I feel like even like the scare station or whatever they work at has more like
Hmm.
I mean more liberties with the design than the college just felt like they wanted to do a college and then just throw their monsters in there. And they add all these characters that aren't necessary, it
Oh
don't
man, they're so
matter.
annoying.
Like it's more and again, it's more annoying because you know they're not important. It's
Yeah.
like you already know they're not, but like the fact that like this is a prequel and you know none of you matter is just like
Hmm.
it makes it even more annoying. It's like I really don't care now.
Yeah. And once again, the whole moral of the movie where it's like anyone can do anything if they work hard enough or whatever. It's like you're all scared in your own way. Like that reigns mute when we know that Mike doesn't become a scarer. So like he if he went to college to be a coach and like he was put on that team to like help the struggling group of scarers who like lost every year when they like they've been trying this for in years past and just couldn't get anywhere. Like he helped them uh and help them do better. Like that'd be one thing, but that's not what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's one of those movies that I was kind of like, yeah, this could be something, because again, like this, Monsters Inc. was a great movie. Again, I kind of was thinking, why not have, a sequel instead of a prequel? But I mean, okay, which again, still, I don't understand why that hasn't happened. Like, again, I get like, the whole nothing's original anymore, but at the same time, I feel like Monsters Inc. deserves
I
this.
mean, I personally think any sequel, kind of like Incredibles 2, any sequel that they give us is not going to be anywhere close to the sequel that we want them to give us. So
Well,
why
yeah, but
bother?
again,
Maybe.
like, but then, like, but why'd you do this one? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this one's even worse. At least with the sequel, you can like at least continue with characters what we can care about. Like, this is like
Yeah.
this is just giving us fan fiction nobody asked for. It's like
Hmm.
I don't know,
Yeah.
especially with
Not to
characters. I mean,
mention, they specifically mentioned in the original, like Mike made a joke about like back when we were
like
in fourth
fourth grade or
grade
something.
and
Yeah.
like, but you
And
met
like,
in
oh, when we
college,
first met in college, it's like, well, someone doesn't know they're on movie, but all right.
right?
That's which is like weird because it's like the entire lore of this universe is like in an hour and a half, and like you missed it, and it's like, come
Uh-huh.
on, like
Right?
you
Like
would think every
when
person working on this movie has seen that movie 10 times at least, and you're just like, nope, drop the
and
ball, like really?
you watch prequels like Better Call Saul or Clone Wars that go out of their way to specifically do things based on one line
Yeah,
of dialogue from the original show.
literally. Like Clone Wars had 7 seasons, and at no point did Anakin run into Grievous because of a throwaway line
Hmm.
in episode 3 about him being short. And it's
Uh-huh.
like because of that, we had all these Grievous fights and all these Anakin fights, and they fought literally everyone else except each other just for this one scene, this
Yep.
one line to make sense.
Yeah,
And it's
there's
like,
one
damn.
throwaway line in Breaking Bad about Saul Goodman's ex-wife, and the entire show of Better Call Saul is about his wife. Like, but like they like one little thing like based on that line is still like happens in the show. Like
Yeah, they're really making the world immersive because it's like, yeah, we're going in, and I appreciate that. But
and, yeah, you're right.
yeah,
One
I don't
line
know.
in a
It's just
90-minute movie should not be hard to keep
literally.
right.
But here we are.
There could have been a thing where like they like Sully was his childhood bully growing up and like or like maybe they were friends younger in school
Yeah.
and then like they drifted apart and then met back in college or something. Like there you could have easily still made it work, but no.
Or they could have just been friends the whole time
Or
and
just
just
friends the
never
whole time.
become
That's also
college friends. I mean,
yeah.
that's my thing. I'm like, there are plenty of people who grow up with and then go to college with their friend. I mean, it's not super common, but I mean, it's common enough. I mean, I went to college with people I went to school with growing
Same.
up.
Yeah.
I went to college with people I knew since like elementary. Well, sixth grade. Yeah,
Yeah,
sixth grade. So like,
yeah, there's one person I went to college with who I knew from church back when we were 3. like I've known them literally my
that's
entire
what I'm
life.
saying. Like, I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I mean, that I feel like that would have been A, it would have been easier, could have saved movie time, and B, like, yeah, I think it makes more sense that they just, I don't know. It's okay. A lot of decisions with this movie were interesting, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, moving on. My number 7. Before I go into this, I just want to preface this by saying I wholeheartedly believe, and you have every right to disagree with this, I wholeheartedly believe that the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies make one of the greatest trilogies in all of movies. It's right up there with Lord of the Rings, Dark Knight, the original Star Wars. It is one of the best trilogies. It is so tightly made. Like every single movie is fantastic in their own right. Like you could argue that 3 kind of goes off the rails, but I think like as a climax, like I think it justifies itself. Like the CG holds up to this day. Like I think every character is very well written. Like I think it's just a very, very good 3 movie saga. And then they made a 4th one. On Stranger Tides is one of the most disappointing movies I've ever seen in theater. Like even as a kid, I adored those three Pirates movies. Like I and not it wasn't really until I watched this movie did I realize, oh, I liked it because of Elizabeth, because of why am I blanking on his name? Why am I blanking on his name? William. William. I love it because of Barbosa. I love it because of Davy Jones. Like the characters of that movie. Like yeah, the action is fantastic, but just the characters really drove those stories to its heights. And not that Jack doesn't shine in those movies, but he's not the reason I fell in love with it. So then when the entire movie is about this flanderized Jack who's just an idiot drunk the entire time, it's not very fun to watch. Have you seen Pirates 4?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, don't. It's not worth it. And like all the new characters they add are either boring or don't really have a purpose. Like there's this one priest guy who Blackbeard just like eligible by like Blackbeard is the main villain of this movie. It's like he's not, and he has like an army of zombie pirates. Like I feel like this has been done before, but whatever. Like we go from skeleton pirates to like fish demon zombies to just regular zombies. Like I feel like you definitely declined in your creativity for army of soldiers there. Yeah, there's this priest guy who falls in love with a mermaid. I don't really know what their deal was. Like just the antics that they get up to on their journey just aren't very interesting. Like I said, the writing of the first 3 is just so tight. Almost every single joke it hits. But because they changed directors, I think the new director they got, I want to say he kind of defaulted to letting Johnny Depp kind of lead the scenes that he was in. Just like, okay, you just kind of do your own thing, you ad lib, whatever, like, we'll make it work. And when an entire multi-minute scene is just Johnny Depp just ad libbing and just saying stuff aimlessly, it's just not fun to watch.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like you love Johnny and he does a great job, but also you got to have some direction. Like you
Yeah,
can't just be like Johnny talks for 30 minutes and then oh yeah, everything's great. Like,
yeah, it's and yeah, it's just not good. I do not recommend it to anybody. Like I legitimately any single person, if I say, hey, I recommend watching the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, always assume I mean just three because there's only three. Like, they had a perfectly fine conclusion. Like, yeah, the ending was like technically open ended, but that's just I feel that it's fine for a movie trilogy to end on a thing like, oh, this character's journey will continue, in the movie's universe. You don't need to actually see it. It's fine. You don't actually need to go see him try to find the Fountain of Youth. Like that's not something we need to see. And then they made that movie and clearly showed, like, yeah, we didn't need to see it.
yeah, it's like not all content just because it could exist doesn't mean it should.
Mm, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, number 6.
All right, number six. Okay, number six.
Mm.
This is an interesting one for me. I don't know. This was one of those where you read the book, you got excited when they found out they were making a movie,
Oh no.
and then you saw the movie, and then you were like, "Oh."
Mm. Yep.
So my number six is actually The Dark Tower. I don't know if you saw that movie,
No, I
but
saw trailers and I kind of wanted to see it, but I didn't end up actually seeing it. Idris Elba, right?
yeah, yeah, Idris Elba, Matthew McConaughey. I mean, great casting. You got,
Mm.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I got really excited because again, I
Yeah.
love Idris Elba. I think Matthew McConaughey is a really, really good actor. Like they got really good acting for it. It seemed like the trailers, they got the gunslingers going. Like it seemed very like
Yeah.
okay, they're about to cook with this. This seems really good. And
Mm.
then the movie started, and
Oh
man,
no.
this was one of those movies that like it was like they hype up the action and the action just feels so boring
Oh
and it's
man.
so it's um this like it has potential and it's like oh this could have been so cool or like man this was described in the book so awesome and then you see the place in like live action it's like oh
Hmm.
okay I mean I don't know it's like I don't know. It's kind of like if Percy Jackson just had like really sad effects. You know what I mean? It's just kind of
Yeah.
like yeah, I understand when coming from reading a book, it's going to be hard to meet everyone's expectations because some people's imaginations are really vivid. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I don't know about that. Like, come on, man! Like this was
Yeah.
supposed to be all.
And part of the problem, just a fundamental issue with making a Dark Tower movie, is the Dark Tower books are kind of like a meta narrative that more or less connects a bunch of other Stephen King books kind of in the same
Mhm.
universe, kind of. But with this movie came out, the only other Stephen King movies that were out were It Part 1 and 2. And I don't know if this movie was like an attempt to try to springboard into a greater Stephen King universe or if it was just a one-to-one adaptation. But I feel like if you had done this as like not don't like try to set up like an Avengers level Stephen King, Stephen King universe. But like I think you kind of could have done something cool if you had, 4 or 5 solid Stephen King novel movies and then had this movie like I think you could kind of pull from that, but I think it being a movie set kind of in its own thing, not being able to reference those other things kind of takes away from what it is. Does that feel right?
Yeah, yeah, it feels right. It's just kind of like I don't know. It's like again, it's one of those. it's one of those things where you can't definitively be like, that's not what that was supposed to be, because again, it's a book. But like, I think we're all kind of like, everyone kind of had the same thing. I'm just kind of like, did you read the book when you wrote when you put this together? Because it feels like, I'm not saying you did it, but it feels like you would have come up with something more. Like, if we're all thinking the same thing, and we didn't talk beforehand, and I don't know about this, but again, could have been a lot better. Is kind of was disappointing. That could have had a lot of potential, especially with like a series that was really, or at least something that a book that's very well known as far as like what it includes and how it's done. So it was kind of like, I don't know, it just felt very tame for what I would have expected. So yeah, I understand it's still like, it's not like a like a rated R movie or anything like that, but I mean, like, it felt very, very tame and very unimaginative for what the source material gave us.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't really recommend it?
I mean, I would recommend. I mean, okay. I mean, the movie itself's not that great anyway. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it in general, but I really wouldn't recommend it if you like the book, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It's not great regardless, but if you like the book, I really don't recommend it, just because I don't.
It's kind of funny you mentioned Percy Jackson earlier, because that is my exact feelings towards the Percy Jackson movie.
Yeah,
it's not a great movie, but like, it's maybe serviceable if you haven't read the books, but if you have read the books, absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the more you know about the source material, the more you get upset.
Yeah. Okay. So my number 6. As you know, I am a massive Transformers fan.
I knew this was coming.
I'm also a massive bad movie fan. I love watching laughably bad movies. And some of these Transformers movies are the most insane, absurd, hilarious things to ever hit the silver screen. Like, Transformers 3 is probably like up there with one of the funniest movies I have ever seen. And not intentionally. Like, all the jokes they actually tell, no, like, not funny, but all the things that are like supposed to be serious, and it's like the entire climax is just a clown show. It is amazing. Transformers Age of Extinction, the next one, just ramps up the absurdity of like every single line spoken by Optimus Prime is just, he's just an absolute maniac. Like, he's so aggressive. He's so like, he I want to say he says the line, "I'll kill you," like at least 4 different times in those. Like, he's like, his first reaction is to threaten people to like shoot or punch, or like would like he's so out of character in that movie. It's hilarious. And again, like, all of even the human characters in that movie specifically are like kind of endearing in a way where they're not trying to be. It's a very fun ride. And then Transformers: The Last Night, the 5th one. It was actually the first Transformers movie that I ended up actually seeing in theaters. I just somehow missed all the other ones. I've obviously watched them all, but this was the first one that I actually saw in theaters. And my brother and I, we had recently done a 4-movie binge of the ones that already come out. Like, we were ready to laugh at this hilariously bad movie. And like, we're halfway through, and it's like, nothing's really happened yet. And then there's this whole sequence of the main character and the hot French lady, who his love interest for the movie. Maybe she's English, whatever. And they're in this submarine, and they're going underwater, and it's like, not a lot's happening yet. And then 20 minutes go by, and they're still underwater, and then climax happens. It's like, what? Like, legitimately, like I couldn't even begin to explain to you what happened in this movie because legitimately it's main character that goes to a place and then climax happens. And then the movie ends. Like there's no build up to really anything. There's like
No, anything.
no anything. Like there's a lot of there are a couple of new Transformers that are like named characters that we've been wanting this whole time, but they're nothing like how we were hoping they would be portrayed. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. That's kind of par for the course with these movies. Um, there's like a weird sub. So at the end of the last movie of Age of Extinction, Optimus like shoots up into space to try to like confront his creator because they sent the villain of the fourth one after him to for whatever reason. This movie starts with Optimus just up in space, frozen, because I guess he didn't get very far before space took him out. Like I don't really know. It's
Space
not like
does
he
what
was.
space does.
He wasn't defeated. He just he's like literally like a gray corpse just floating in space. Then he's found by his creator and like turned evil and then sent and then that happened in the first like 10 minutes. Optimus turns evil. An hour and 50 minutes go by before Optimus shows up again. I don't believe he's referenced a single other time between when his creator finds him and when he shows up to fight Bumblebee right before the climax. Like, and then like Bumblebee does something, I don't remember what it was. Then Optimus like remembers he's a good guy, and then he gives some rousing speech, and then climax. Climax just happens. Couldn't begin to tell you what happened or why it happened. It's like it's just for how insane the first four movies are to then go and be this dull was just surprising. Like that was not the kind of bad I wanted out of a Transformers movie. I either wanted it to be really good, like Bumblebee ended up being, or so insane it's laughable like four. And it's just dull. And that's arguably one of my least favorite kinds of movies is just boring dull. Like there's nothing to latch onto, there's nothing to remember. Like honestly, I can't even really rank it much higher because it's just there's nothing to it. So I just I regret wasting 2.5 hours watching this movie. Yeah.
I mean, and again, it's kind of one of those things where like they're just kind of things are happening,
Mm-hmm.
but like not really. Like the movie's been going on, but you're kind of like someone asked you, all right, what's the main five things that have been going on lately? You're kind of just like
Mm-hmm.
the Optimist is kind of doing stuff, but like we're not sure why. But eh.
So yeah, do not recommend.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. Oh man. Okay, so this is top five now, right?
Top five. Yep.
So I have one that this is from a while back. This is like
Mm-hmm.
almost I think maybe 15 years at this point. But
Yep.
so mine is Chronicles of Narnia, Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Ooh, I
So
saw this one. I think yeah, I kind of liking it,
yeah,
but I'll hear your thoughts.
really? Okay, so here's my so again, kind of like the Dark Tower. I grew up. I like we read. My mom had this giant, like the like all-in-one
Mm.
Narnia book where we had the giant book where she like read to us when we were kids. When we got older, we read it ourselves, and I
Mm.
kind of knew all the Narnia stories and everything. So again, I really liked the movies when they come out. The Lion, the
Yep.
Witch, and the Wardrobe was really well done. I loved how it was kind of like Lord of the Rings esque with like the
Oh
big
yeah.
battle scenes. how good, the CG looks really good despite it being like mid 2000s. The battles were really intense, even though it's a kids movie. People can definitely still get wasted. So like, it's very like for a kid, you're like, this is what I'm talking about. And then Prince Caspian, again, not as there's still epicness. There's still really good fighting. It's a little different, but again, the action's honestly a little bit higher. Honestly, it's pretty more intense, a little more brutal. Honestly, there's some scenes where definitely guys lose heads, so I'm kind of like, oof. But, and then we get to the third.
Sorry, just one little moment about Prince Caspian.
No,
one of my all-time favorite, like, just short, like, one little, like, sentence lines from a movie, really, is from Prince Caspian, where, you know how it's a Britishism to call, like, a flashlight a torch? In the book, it says they lit a torch and went into the cave. So in the movie, like, they're about to go down that torch and into the cave, and the older brother is like trying to like wrap up a stick to like try to light a torch. Is like, give me a light, and then Edmund pulls out a flashlight. He's like, I got a torch right here. It's like, that's so good. That's very good, like modernization and like using the words. That's good.
Yeah, they thought about that. See,
yeah,
knowing your source material is what I'm talking about. Like someone wrote that, whoever wrote that, read the book, and they knew that line was in there. But no. But anyway, so the first two movies I was really a big fan of. Lots of action, really, intense stakes, super awesome battle. We got, you got freaking lions and bears fighting people, getting punched by trees, like, very serious fantasy awesomeness. Like what you want to see, like the most mid 2000s thing you've ever seen. And then we get to this third movie, and I knew the story, and I kind of knew going in it wasn't as intense as some of the other stories, because I was kind of hoping they were going to do some different ones, because I thought maybe they would go like the magician's nephew or something like that, or like anything. But they picked this one, and I'm kind of like, okay, like we'll see how this goes. And the thing I immediately don't like is like we're kind of just. I always hate when you're going into a series of movies and we just thrust a new character, and then that character is very unlikable because Eustace is just kind of thrown in. And when I tell, like, again, I understand that you have characters that are, part of the character is to be unlikable, but I mean, this guy was insufferable from the jump as a character. It's got this whiny voice, just really annoying, like, really just don't. I don't want you in this movie. I don't. Like I don't need you here, especially because we don't have Peter or Susan, so it's just Lucy and Edmund as our main family members have now been reduced, and now we get a new one who stinks, and you're kind of like, oh, well, that's not great, and it kind of just. And the stakes in this movie are a lot lower. I don't even remember how it's portrayed in the movie, basically, but they're just kind of on the ship for a while. Like, it's very, not a lot happens. They're kind of just around. There doesn't really need to be a clear conflict. Like, it's just from where we, like, again, not knowing the source material, it feels like it's not even the same series of movies. Knowing the source material, it still feels like, what are we doing?
Right.
And it's kind of like, it just, I don't know. It feels like I don't know. I just remember watching this because it's like, why? Like, you have these, like, this is your third movie. So you've clearly had some success. And you're kind of completely leaning out of what you've done with your first two movies as far as, I mean, I don't know if it's because maybe the two older siblings decided not to come back, so you're like, oh, well, can we do a story without them? But, like, even if that is the case, I mean, I feel like there's a easier way to write around that, but I don't know.
So the reason why the third movie is Voyage of the Dawn Treader is when C.S. Lewis was writing the original books, the first three he wrote were Light Which the Word Drove, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and then he wrote the other four much later. Like, those are the three that are considered canon. The rest are like other stories that may
Yeah.
have actually happened in the universe. So I guess when the filmmakers were making, they were like, well, this is the most canon one that, if we make any other people before this one, people might be mad or whatever. So we got to do this. I don't know.
I mean, I didn't
I
even
do
know
agree
that.
that
So.
like if some of the cast can't come back, I don't know if because they weren't in that book, so I don't know if they were even asked to come back. But
Yeah, that's the thing.
like maybe you do a print magician's apprentice, and but because like I like I think that one, like, yeah, it would be a prequel technically to Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, but like I think that's more warranted than Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which even the book is not as good as the other ones.
Yeah, I know, but and it's like, and again, it's like you kind of knew, but it's still kind of like, oh man, this feels very, there's much less action. It's the characters aren't as
Mm.
interesting, and he kind of gets to the point. I mean, it looks good in
Yeah.
some areas. The water looks great, but it's also like, man, this feels like, and again, of course, that was the last one, and you're kind of like, man, I feel like the series was going really strong, and then just.
Mm.
So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I really like those first two movies, and to see it all off like that really just makes me sad. So
Yeah. 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 Like I definitely did see that in theaters, but now that I'm thinking about it, I have almost no memory of that movie. Like I remember what's his face turning into a
nothing
dragon
happened.
towards the end, and then Aslan stopping that, and then nothing in between.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Soundtrack is still
Okay.
good though. But.
Yeah. Okay. My number 5 is The Flash.
Oh man. Yeah. Yep.
Like to this day, this movie still makes me very angry because why the heck was this movie of all movies in development hell for as long as it was? Why was it so hard for them to make a Flash movie when they have so much source material, so much to work with just based on, you can do multiverse shenanigans, that's fine, like, but they have, even if you are doing your first movie as Flashpoint, whatever, but you have every single chess piece already there to make Flashpoint. You have the Shazam kids, you have Wonder Woman, you have Black Manta, you have Deathstroke, you have Thomas Wayne, you have Martha Wayne, like you have like the only other piece you would need is hire someone to play Eobard Thawne, and that shouldn't be that hard to do. So like I legitimately think like I legitimately think just making a shot for shot remake of Flashpoint Paradox would have, like, yeah, it would have been derivative, but at least would have been a better than whatever this was.
Best superhero movie ever, or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what James
Whoever
Gunn
said
was on when he
that.
said that. I don't
Yeah,
know what that
I mean,
was.
listen. I mean, they're saying nice things, and then there's just flat out just
Yeah,
but
and like,
you know,
there's a couple of moments where, like, yeah, I guess it's cool to see Michael Keaton back as Batman, but I would want him to come back under a different context, like a Batman Beyond or a Dark Knight Returns type thing, or whatever. If he were to come
yeah,
back, and like the fact that the whole movie, like, it's like we kind of want to do Flashpoint, but we also want to do our own thing with it. And our own thing, by that I mean we're just gonna set it in the Tim Burton universe. Like that's so weird. It's like, oh, the No Way Home was successful, so let's just try to replicate that. Not by bringing in other Flash actors to act alongside our Flash. No, we're gonna bring in another Batman, and instead of having this movie have any kind of Superman, we're gonna bring in Supergirl for some reason. Like, not that the actress did a bad job, but she wasn't given anything to do, so I can't even really judge what she did. Like,
yeah.
like, oh, it's gonna be set in the Tim Burton universe, but in this universe, the events of Man of Steel still happen.
Which again make no sense.
No sense. But like the events of the movie only happen because the Dark Flash thing pushes Barry out of time to cause events that will then cause him to exist, that would cause Barry to get to a point that would then create Black Flash in the first place. But why? What?
Should have just made a simple movie about Flash and like a
Just
couple
make him
rogues.
fight a big gorilla. Like that's all we need.
That
That's all we
that
need.
too.
A big gorilla, a guy who has an ice gun, anything of the above, like, or you just have reverse flash, like anything. It would have been so easy. But no, they had to make it not a Flash movie. But like they also remembered, oh, we this is the first movies with this like the first actual movie with this Flash, so we still kind of gotta do his origin. So we're gonna do his origin, but instead of making like doing a flashback, we're gonna essentially have our Flash's powers transfer into a much more annoying Barry Allen.
Bro, the double Ezra Miller was so uncalled for. Like,
And it's so insane because it's not like there aren't several other characters that easily could have filled that void. You could have had Wally West, you could have had Jay Garrick, you could have had, Bart Allen. Like there are several other characters that easily could have filled that role, but no, just another Ezra Miller? Are you kidding me? Somehow more annoying Ezra Miller. Like, and you have that moment where like he talks about like his first big failure was not being able to save that person at the Battle of Metropolis, and then like during while the events are happening, like they cut to Metropolis and like we see that family getting attacked, and then Barry just doesn't do anything to help this time. Like Chekhov's gun is a very prominent writing tool for a reason. Like you clearly almost did it, you just didn't pull the trigger. Like what are you doing? Like, and like, I feel like it kind of has a similar vibe to it as the as that Suicide Squad game, because like now I legitimately feel like every time I watch Batman or Batman Returns, like, oh, this Batman I guess ends up dying brutally 17 different ways against trying to kill Zod. That's weird. That's it's bad. It's really bad.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's one of those two where it's just kind of like, because remember this movie was in production now forever, and is it gonna happen? It's not gonna happen. They're never gonna release it. It might happen for however many directors and Ezra Miller's various
Escapades.
issues, yeah, going on in real life. So it's kind of like, oh, this is definitely gonna happen. So like, I'm sure this movie got written, rewritten, torn apart, reshot 1,000 times, and eventually we got whatever that was, and it's just kind of like, okay, like,
like, and I
know,
think
it's just,
I think the thing I hate this movie the most for is that this movie came out 3 months before Blue Beetle, which is a legitimately great movie, but because this movie sucked so bad, no one went to see Blue Beetle.
yeah, because they're like, oh, it's also DC. Well, DC sucks now, and then
Yeah,
Blue
Shazam!
Beetle,
Fury
which
of the
was a really
Gods
good
was a
movie.
nothing movie, and then The Flash is terrible. It's like, well, why should I see Blue Beetle? Like, yeah, yeah. Last year was not the best for DC stuff because Aquaman wasn't great either.
Yeah. Forgot they
So
made a
this,
second Aquaman,
yeah. So
honestly.
this movie was a critical point of like, wow, this was like for how bad the DCU had been to that point, like, obviously I really do not like BVS. I don't like Suicide Squad. I don't like either Justice League. I don't like Wonder Woman 84. The first Shazam's okay, but the second Shazam is terrible. Aquaman's okay. The second one's not great either. Like, and then this movie is just somehow worse than all of those. Yeah.
Is it worse than Suicide Squad, you think? The first one?
Hmm?
You think
Um,
it's worse than the
we'll
first Suicide Squad movie?
put a pin on that. Let me
Fair
say it
enough.
this way: the reason why this movie isn't any higher is because I didn't actually pay money to see it. When I went to see this movie, I paid for 2 tickets for the Transformers Rise of the Beasts instead, and just stuck into this movie. Turns out Rise of the Beast wasn't ideal. It was better than last night, thank goodness, but like still wasn't great. But like, so like, if I actually had paid money to watch this, it would probably be up a slot or two. But like, but
Yeah, it's still
it's
not great
comfortably in the
regardless.
top five. We'll put it that way.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's
Oh
also
man,
just a really long movie. Like it's one of those movies where you feel the
it
length. Like
was
some
really,
some movies just
and
breeze by like 2.5 hours. Like no big deal. With this one, I was feeling it. Like,
that's because like you knew it was a long movie, but like nothing was that. It was just random stuff was just happening the
mm-hmm.
whole time. It was just really annoying.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4.
Number four. All right, so number four, I have Anchorman 2.
Oh.
So yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my.
yeah. So again, I don't know if you've seen the Anchorman movies, but
I haven't.
the first one is actually really solid. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the again, Anchorman, it's one of those Will Ferrell movies. You just kind of it's a stupid movie. It's a lot of jokes. You just kind of go in knowing what to expect, and it does a good job. It does. It makes a lot of good jokes. It's funny. Get with the characters make a lot of sense. It's a whole deal. And this was in the peak of all those Will Ferrell movies that are kind of the same, like Step Brothers and oh my gosh, what's the not the debate? What is the there that he's like running for mayor or whatever? I forget. But there's a lot of those movies like that. But yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the first Anchorman was really good. I watched it with my brother and everything, and I'm talking to my parents. I'm like, hey, we got to see the second one, and we all go to see it, like the four of us. Which this movie was PG-13. I think this was like 2010, maybe.
It's like
This was a
it
while
was.
ago.
I was in high school, so it was like
Was it?
2014.
Oh, okay, 2013. Okay, 2013. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. Okay, maybe. Okay, yeah, high school makes more sense. So I remember it was PG-13, and I remember my parents were still like, eh, even though I was old enough.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like,
My parents were like that too.
yeah,
Okay.
but then I saw the movie and I was like, okay, maybe they weren't that wrong. Because the movie is
Yeah.
just like it's weird. The jokes don't land at
Mm.
all. First of all, which is like, and again, this isn't like I'm too young to get the jokes. This is like as an adult, that's a terrible joke. That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. And there's like weird, like this random sex stuff just thrown in. And you're just like, what? Like, why? This is not that okay. Whatever. Like, it's just like there's a lot of. It's not funny. It doesn't feel like the first one at all. Like, I just remember watching it. I mean, I literally was like, I kind of want to go. Like, this is dumb. And
Mm-hmm.
and I talked to people after, and I was like, and they were like, oh, it's terrible. Everybody hated it. So like, I was kind of like, okay, good. Like, I wasn't the only one who was kind of like, did I watch the right movie? But yeah, it just I basically hyped me and my brother hyped it up to my parents, and of course it was trash. And I just will not forever remember that because now my parents probably think everything I like is terrible. So I'm just kind of like, oh my god, see now this is what I get for hyping up something I hadn't actually seen. I just thought it was gonna be good. So yeah.
Right. So is it? I kind of remember one criticism around the time it came out is that essentially does it kind of do the sequel thing where it basically does the plot of the first one just again?
Yeah, but it does it kind of worse this time
Hmm.
because it kind of recycles a lot of the same material. It's almost like seeing a comedy show twice but like
Hmm.
5 years later,
I
and
see.
like the person's delivery feels off.
Hmm.
It's kind of like,
Yeah.
it was funnier when I heard it the first time, but this time when when I kind of saw it coming and you're not as on point with it, it just falls flat.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Eh.
Okay. So my number four, take out the pin because now is Suicide Squad. um. So the reason why this movie is higher than The Flash is because going into The Flash, I knew with absolute certainty that was going to be a trash tier movie. There was no universe, no multiverse where that was going to be an even half decent movie. I knew that when it was announced back in 2017. Like, by the way things were going, I just knew that whenever this movie eventually came out, there was no possible way it could be good. So when I went into The Flash, and when it was actively disappointing me, I was like, you know, yeah, it sucks. I'm gonna be thinking about this a lot, but it's not like I had high expectations and then they were killed. With Suicide Squad, my I was going into it with a couple of things. First, I absolutely hated BVS, but I'm like, surely it can't be worse than BVS. Like, I don't really care about these characters. We'll see. Outside of the Joker, I don't really care about most of these characters, but I still like DC stuff. I still like it was. I was kind of at that point, but where I was in the process of learning a lot about the expanded lore of DC. So I had recently watched the Salon Arkham cartoon, and I really liked that. So that was my first introduction to Suicide Squad stuff. It was like, hey, this is an interesting concept that I think this movie could potentially be something cool. The later trailers made it look at least more appealing. So going in, I was like, this could be fun. And it's one of those movies where upon first watch, you maybe don't really realize how bad it is. Like, I remember, when my first thoughts after walking out of it was like, really legitimately said to my brother, "It's like, well, at least that was better than BVS," because like it didn't wound me as much as BVS did. It didn't kill two of my absolute favorite characters and then also have Wonder Woman there for some reason. It didn't ruin something I really cared about. But then even not even 24 hours later, with just a cursory just reflection, it was like, wow, every single aspect of that movie was just bad. Yeah, the soundtrack is technically good, but it's used in such an obtuse and obvious way that nothing, it just doesn't really matter. Like it almost to the point where it's almost kind of making fun of your intelligence to be like, hey, they're lining up like an army, Seven Nation Army. They're flying, Spirit of the Sky. This guy's from Louisiana. Um, I can't think of what that. House of the Rising Sun. There's just it's just too on the nose to really like it feels very amateurish. Just the editing is bad, and I know people that this movie was cut to shreds, and David Ayer was taken off, and some other company was taken in to re-edit it and whatever. But the fact that every single character was written badly, just the line deliveries that are in the movie are so weird. The costuming I didn't love. The plot I feel is overall. I feel any plot elements that could be different, just I don't think they'll be replaced with something that's better. Just the bones of the movie, I just don't feel really could be improved. as someone who didn't really love the first Justice League movie, and then when the Snyder Cut came out, I don't love that movie either. I feel like it would be kind of the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, a lot of stuff changed, but like not in a way that made me like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just not good. Not good.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, I mean, this. It's just like it's weird because again, this movie makes no sense. Again, like outside of really good casting of Viola Davis for Amanda Waller, which I will always stand by, and that's one of the best castings for any comic book character ever, 100%. Because it was one of those you thought about before the movie even came out, and you were like, "Yep, that works."
Yep.
And
it turns out Joel Kinnaman was a good choice for Rick Flag, just in the next movie. Those Suicide Squad, he was good in that, but not here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like half the characters do the same thing, so it just feels very.
Which they all, it's like, and it doesn't like get any better. The writing makes no sense. It's just, the book everything looks goofy. It just, it makes no sense. Like, there's no, it suffers from very poor writing. It doesn't know what it wants to do. This universe's rules don't really make sense yet. It's just not a good movie.
We're gonna set it in Midway City, a city that all the comic nerds know, but we're not gonna have any of the hot people in it. So why is it here? Why isn't it just in New York or Gotham or some city that like
anywhere else?
Or even like in Metropolis, but Superman's already dead, so like it can be here and like we're not questioning why isn't Superman here fixing this. But like Enchantress wasn't a very interesting villain. Like, the team is a bunch of bad guys, but the only people they kill are a bunch of like mindless putty demons. Like, I don't. Their mission was saving Waller from a position she put herself in. Like, it's weird. It's weird and bad. I don't like it.
It's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, but because it presented itself as a better movie than The Flash ever did, it's a little higher on my regrets list. Even though I do. Let me put it this way: the Flash, despite all the turmoil that it went to eventually get to the product it became, it still feels like more or less a complete vision. Whereas Suicide Squad, I do kind of give it like a slightest bit of a pass because that clearly isn't the movie it's supposed to be. Like there is that the other version that may ever not be out there that could fix it. It wouldn't, but could fix it to like be something that might be worth watching. But like the movie we got is not really a movie. It's not really the product that we were supposed to see. Whereas The Flash is. So I do think The Flash is an overall worse product, but but Suicide Squad disappointed me more. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, but again, both are not great. One that has to be ranked higher than the other, so that's fine.
Exactly. All right. Number 3.
Yeah, top 3. Oh man, another movie that I will, at any time anyone brings it up, I will actively destroy and tear down because how dare you? Men in Black International. Oh my gosh. Dude, listen. I hate this movie so much.
But you love Thor Ragnarok, and they did that again. Tessa Thompson and
don't even start with that. Because again, like this movie is a definition of I don't know what we're making, but it sounds like it should make. Like if at GPT was like what could make money in 2018 or this is what would have been spit out. Like popular actors, popular old concept. Everyone's rebooting everything. Boom. And again, on paper, it's not a horrible idea. Like, okay, Men in Black, very profitable franchise. Very, they made 3 movies, have a great trilogy, super good buddy cop alien concept thing. Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones crushed it. All 3 movies, great. Some of my favorite movies ever, growing up and currently. Just hilarious, a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then this movie exists. And man, when I like, it's so bad because this movie, again, takes a concept from a previous series and literally does not, outside of a picture on a wall, in no other way, references where any of the other stuff. And it's so annoying because we don't like it just because, the name, man. I mean, this movie was written, the jokes are, when I tell you the jokes fall flat, I mean, these jokes fall through the center of the earth. Like, they are painfully bad. Like, my brother
picked up a hammer and played a little bit of the Avengers.
No.
What are you doing, man?
That's not even, like, it's just like this. It's so weird because they play these and they write in these characters that make no sense. Like, they make Chris Hemsworth this, like, dumb blonde. Like, there's this weird thing about making Chris Hemsworth, like, just eye candy and everything. Except Thor.
Yeah,
and
Ghostbusters does the same thing.
Yeah,
where he's just
exactly.
A dumb,
it's like the same thing.
Yeah, dumb guy.
He's like this dumb. He's like dumb eye candy guy, but like it's worse because people. It's like he's almost like, in Dragon Ball, like Hercule, Mr. Satan, or whatever. Like where he's like the world champ, but in terms of the actual show, he's like super weak.
Yeah.
Or like King from
One Punch Man.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Like, he's supposedly this, like, super awesome #1 MIB agent, all this stuff. And, like, the dude is, like, terrible. And he's, like, not good. People have been covering for him. He's, like, gets drunk all the time. Like, it's just really annoying. And then this chick, like, somehow finds out MIB's real somehow, which is okay, I guess. But then she's, like, this real, like, they make a quirky character like too quirky and too like nerdy. It's like, okay, be a person. Come on, don't do that. But I don't know. It's just a lot of this stuff, and then there's some crazy twist they're just throwing in out of nowhere. Like it's just so not well done, and just like it's such a spit in the face to anyone who liked the original stuff. Like it makes me so. Just saying it makes me upset. It's just so annoying. And like, they try to make homages and nods to things, but they fall flat. They're not done as well. Like, it's like they're trying to do, it's kind of like the Kingsman thing where like, we're the same organization, but we're on this side of the pond, so it's different. And it's like, I mean, it didn't really work when they did it either, but it really doesn't work here. And it just kind of, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way so many levels. I hate it so much.
Yeah. Okay. My number 3 is Batman v Superman.
Okay, that's my number 2. So nice.
Nice. I'm feeling I know what your number 1 is. That might be my number 2, but we'll get there.
Fair enough.
We'll see. Like, never have I watched a movie where I legitimately believe, outside of maybe my number 2, but we'll get there, but I legitimately believe that every single creative decision made, I would do the exact opposite.
Yep.
There is not a single moment in this movie where I actively enjoyed what was going on. There's not a single moment where I agreed with anyone's moral compass. I didn't think anyone ever made the correct decisions in the movie itself. I didn't think any of the creative decisions of Zack Snyder or the director, whoever, like writer, whatever. I didn't think any of them ever like understood the characters, understood the plot they were trying to tell, understood why these characters are appealing, understood why Superman dying should be a big deal, why it's a big deal when Batman and Superman fight, how Wonder Woman should interact with this universe, like why it's a big deal, that there's other superheroes out there and not just have Wonder Woman see a flash drive with their logos that I guess LexCorp created. That's bizarre. I don't like here's little trailers for other movies we might make.
Yeah.
Just the I completely butchered Lex Luthor, one of my all-time favorite movie villains or comic book villains.
So bad.
Like
So bad.
just every single decision I think was done incorrectly. But
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where like again, when I watched Man of Steel, I was originally, it wasn't terrible, but there were some moments where I was like, that's wrong. That's not, either that's not Superman or that makes no sense that he would teach his son to not save people. That's the complete opposite of what the kids stand for, and by extension, what Superman stands for. Like all these things, I'm like, that's not how that works. And then okay, he saved everybody, kind of. Okay, maybe I'm reading too into this. And then this movie came out. And then you quickly found out, okay, yeah, you don't know anything about any of these characters at all. You're just using them as your tools for your own story.
Like, and then in Justice League, you try to retcon it as if Superman was seen as this beacon of hope when he never was. Everyone hated him. He was a brooding mess the entire time. Like, it seemed like even Lois barely liked him. Like, Lois's little side quest didn't lead to anything because it just led to, oh, guess what? Lex Luthor's the villain. Yeah, we know. We've known from the beginning.
Really, like, and then Batman. How do you do Batman wrong? Batman's so again, it's so annoying because I mean, you know this, everyone knows this.
Mm-hmm.
I love Batman. I've loved Batman since I was like 4. You know what I mean? Like, we love Batman's okay, and to just do Batman so out of character, just out of nowhere, it's just like, why? Like, why does Batman kill people? Like, what? That's like the easiest. Like, Batman's 3 easiest rules are no powers, no guns, doesn't kill people.
Yeah,
that's like the main thing. Like that, everyone. You don't have to know anything about comic books, and you know that. And yet,
but back in the 1940s, he did kill people a couple of times, and then they figured out his character, and he didn't do that again. Like, oh, but he killed people in the 80s and 90s movies. Yeah, but Joker's dead in those movies, so I don't care. Like, that's my main issue. If Batman is going to kill, Joker needs to also be dead.
And again, it's also one of those things like, I understand that it's been done, but again, the vast majority of interpretations of this character outweigh that in one sense. And also, it's other things too. It's not just he's killing them, it's I ran him over with the Batmobile. Like, going 100 miles an hour while blowing up the truck is like, oh no, I threw a brick at this guy's head. Like, oh yeah, no, come on.
Like, part of what could have made this movie really cool on a moral dynamic standpoint is like Batman, who he enacts vigilante justice, but he does it by not killing people. He kind of feels like he has this moral high ground on Superman because he witnessed Superman's actions kill thousands of people in Metropolis. It's like, with that unchecked power, like that is, that could then lead to more people dying. But if Batman's going around not only killing people with his Batmobile, not only hitting people with big crates and splattering their brains on the wall, he also specifically brands criminals to then have other criminals as a signal for other criminals to shank them in prison. And we're supposed to just be okay with that? Like, he went super dark after Jason Todd died. So dark that he started branding criminals as a signal for other people to kill them. That's psychotic. That's something that like Victor Zsasz would do or whatever. Like that's something that that's a villain material. And we're supposed to be on his side for the whole movie? Like, no. I don't. Part of what would have made this movie kind of cool is if, like, you see both sides, like they actually butt heads more often. Like you really don't know who to root for. So then when they're fighting, it's actually an equal fight, which the fight itself also sucked because it's just Batman beating the crap out of a weakened Superman. Superman gets back up, and then he starts beating the crap out of Batman, and then Batman weakens him again, and then he wins. Well, then the Martha scene, but that's a whatever. That's essentially how the fight goes. And like I've seen with health bars fight between them is literally Superman. Oh, power gain. Oh, power gain. Like it's not interesting in the.
And it's dumb too because like their reason for fighting makes no sense. Mm-hmm. Your entire premise for your entire movie is dumb. Like, oh, Batman's fighting Superman. Why? Because reasons.
But if anything, Superman has more of a reason to be fighting Batman because he's doing this investigation as to what the heck is going on in Gotham. Oh, the vigilante calling himself the Batman is going around branding people, going around killing people, doing vigilante justice in places that he's not needed. Superman has a legitimate reason to go after Batman in the movie called Batman v Superman when we're introduced to it, showcasing Batman Batman viewing the destruction of Metropolis from ground level. Yet Superman has a legitimate reason to actually want to take down Batman. Like that just doesn't sit well with me. So
I don't know. It's just disappointing because again, to see your favorite characters just kind of be used for their own, Zack Snyder's own brand, and I think too the fandom, just like half of people just jumping on the bandwagon. Oh, this is great! This is the best stories ever, and I'm like, have you people never seen real stories or never read a comic book? Like, there's so many, like if it's animated or whatever versions of stuff that's just so much better and so much concise. And it's how is this? How do you think this is better?
Right, especially after watching through Superman the Animated Series and being like, oh, this storyline would have made perfect sense here. The guy who was injured, who worked for Bruce, who got that cool wheelchair from Lex Luthor. Why didn't that guy become Metallo? It felt like that was the exact that was what that was leading to, and now he just blew up. That's so weird. Why didn't they do Bizarro?
Yes.
That was the story that the movie wanted to tell, but instead he turned a clone of it's not just that that Superman is not just it's not just that Luthor turned Zod's body into Doomsday. That's not the main issue I have. The issue is that Luthor isn't smart enough to do it himself. He takes him into the Kryptonian ship that somehow knows how to turn his body into a doomsday. It's like, why does the
And
ship
it
know how to
does
do
it
this?
for him.
The the point of Luthor is that he thinks he's the smartest person on the planet, mostly because he kind of is. So, like, he should just be able to do it himself. No, you take that agency away from him and say he's just a manic freak. So,
Yeah, it's just
like,
yeah, I don't know why. And that's my thing. It's like there's no like I mean people are like, oh, this one version of Luthor from this random comic no one's ever it's like clearly Zack
it's
Snyder.
actually Luthor's son, so it's a different character. It shouldn't have been. That's the point. It should have just been like
Also,
Luthor.
if that's true, the movie would have said that. Like, that's my thing. It's like people are trying to do work for the movie. It's like, no, the movie, I should not have to do homework to understand. This isn't a lecture. I shouldn't have to do homework to understand the movie, especially when the movie, like, this stuff wasn't in any of the previous, in the previous movie. So it's like, oh, yeah, that's just like, why didn't they say that?
Right.
Oh, well, that's supposed to be this. Oh, well, that's actually not Jason Todd. That's Dick Grayson. A, that doesn't make any sense. B, why didn't they say that? And C, that still doesn't make any sense.
So stupid.
Like, just dumb. That's not how that works. Like, why would you have a Robin killed by the Joker and not be the one that's actually done that? That doesn't make any sense. Like,
yeah, like you're limiting your universe before it even starts. Like, why would you do that? Oh, like we're we're gonna shoot Jimmy Olsen in the face in the first 5 minutes of our Superman movie? Are you kidding?
that's Jimmy Olsen. Why is that Jimmy Olsen? Like,
In a
I didn't
movie
even know
where
that was
Superman
him.
could
Like,
use a best friend as like a moral compass? Are you kidding? Every decision is incorrect.
so annoying. So annoying.
And
Why are you like this?
and then before we even have a chance to really like this Superman, he dies. Again, a kind of underwhelming fight. Like,
Yeah.
you could have just thrown the spear or given it to Wonder Woman or whatever. No, he got to do it himself because he's Superman.
And then like the world mourns for some reason, even though not 5 minutes ago everyone hated Superman, and it's like, well, now Superman's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and all the pointless dream sequences and like nightmare scenarios.
That
Stop.
never go anywhere. We are done, and those never came back in any capacity.
If we had Justice League Part 2, then we would have had that scene of Barry going back in time to tell Bruce that Lois is the key that never mattered what.
You can't tell me in 4 hours you're doing it wrong. Like, no. I don't know.
No, and that's like kind of the one instance where I feel that the Justice League 2017 version kind of does that scene better, where like Bruce like tells Alfred to go get the contingency just in case the Superman revival doesn't go right, and his contingency is bring Lois Lane to the scene to to try to talk him down. Whereas in Snyder's version, Lois just kind of like wanders onto what's happening and then calls out to him like, "You're not even gonna." I feel like that is actually Batman using Lois as the key as actually taking that into account here, but instead Lois doesn't matter. Why? What is the purpose of that entire sequence? Like, oh, if Batman doesn't do whatever, doesn't if Lois dies, Superman might be evil, but Batman already thinks he's evil. So what would saving Lois matter? Like, I don't. And then Lois being in danger doesn't really affect Batman at all in the rest of the movie. So like, it's dumb and I hate it. It wounds me.
And it annoys me so much because this movie, despite not doing as well as it should have, despite completely writing every character wrong, people just leaned into Zack Snyder's like whatever vision, and then we got a bunch of other movies that no one cares about. or at least
but
shouldn't.
no. The problem is you didn't watch the Ultimate Edition. See, if the Ultimate Edition would have been the first movie that came out, people would have actually liked it. Oh yeah, totally. 30 extra movies of a movie I don't like. Totally would have saved it. No, stop it.
I don't
30
like,
extra minutes?
again,
No, stop it.
And again, the thing is, like, even with like the Snyder Cut, they're like, oh, this version is better. It's like, my issue isn't that like it's not long enough or like some random extra details are added as far as like, oh, this character who wasn't in it. Like, my problem is every character in this movie is written incorrectly. So unless this movie completely fixes that, that's just a longer version of the same problem. I don't like. You know what I mean? It's like it's like when you have. It's like having a car that doesn't have an engine, and then I was like, oh wait, no, but here it is, and you put some like nice rims on it. And it's like, oh yeah, now the rims are nice. I wear a fresh coat of paint. It's like the car still doesn't have an engine in it. I don't care how much paint you put on it. We're still not going anywhere. That's not the problem. You're not fixing the problem.
Mm-hmm. They still shot Joni Olsen in the face. They still took that character out of the entire universe. Like, that's a problem.
They still don't understand the two main title characters in any capacity. Therefore, the entire movie is pointless. If you still don't understand how Batman or Superman work, then your entire movie is garbage to off rip.
Mm-hmm. Like, I liked Alfred. He's probably my favorite character and part of that entire universe, really. But like, outside of that, almost every single aspect of the entire movie was just, I feel, done incorrectly.
So much of it's done wrong, and I just
Yeah, the fact that I still have to get to Twitter arguments today over people fanboying over it is insane to me. It's like, yeah, there's a couple of good shots that look good. Still shots when people aren't talking and like actually having character moments that aren't like the characters are supposed to be. It's not like I think the most ridiculous part is they even misunderstood Doomsday, because like the whole point of Doomsday is that he comes to Metropolis and just absolutely wrecks everything. But because Zack Snyder, completely overcorrected from Man of Steel and had the entire climax take place in an abandoned part of Gotham somehow, like the Gotham Harbor, it's abandoned, so no one will get hurt. Like, you missed the point of Doomsday. How do you do that? The point of the Superman shouldn't be fighting him while protecting other people. It's like,
I mean, there's so much. That's just what I'm talking about. Like, there's just so much that bothers me. It's just like, I can't deal. Like, it annoys me. It's like this whole thing. It's like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no game where I'm not gonna like this movie. I don't think I ever am.
We've ranted. There's probably at least 8 hours of us ranting about this movie, at least, across the video series, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. It is.
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
That was my number 2 also. Yeah. So I guess now it's your number.
So my number 2 is another movie that we have spent countless hours ranting and raving and analyzing and being annoyed at. And I'm wondering if it's your number 1, because I wouldn't be surprised if it were.
Most likely.
Is Rise of Skywalker your number 1?
Yeah, I knew that was coming. That was the first movie I thought of when I thought of this category.
Originally, so when I originally made this list and sent it to my brothers, like, this is my list. I tweaked it a little afterwards. I originally had BVS at number 2 because in my heart of hearts, I genuinely believe that I like Batman more than I like Star Wars. But Rise of Skywalker is somehow a worse movie than Batman v Superman. My brother convinced me of that. It's like, yeah, you're so right. Because at least we have the Batman franchise. We have the Penguin. We have, stuff in that universe. Like Batman can be salvaged. And he has been salvaged. The cut the damage that Rise of Skywalker has inflicted across the entirety of Star Wars will be felt for my entire lifetime, and there's no going back.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, the thing too is like, yeah, kind of like thinking like that. Yeah, there's a lot of different versions of Batman. Like this is Star Wars canon. Like this isn't just Star Wars content. This is either numbered episode movies, and
Yep.
you can't. I
Yep.
mean, you
So
theoretically can't undo that.
yeah, so whenever The Mandalorian or Ahsoka or any other like a spin-off show references something like cloning or something that eventually will lead to something from the sequel trilogy, it's like, oh, that's neat, but it doesn't help those movies being terrible, so why should I care?
Yep.
Like, oh, you're kind of developing the New Republic? Well, they're just gonna die in a couple of years, so why should I
It
care?
doesn't matter. We're just gonna do. I mean, again, like the Rise of Skywalker is the worst of the three for so many reasons. But I mean, the sequel as a whole, it's just kind of like you just it's just redoing, but worse. It's like we're just gonna do the Empire, but different, even though they
Mhm.
look exactly the same and do the exact same thing. And people forget that they're called the First Order because it's just the new Empire. But
Mhm.
I don't know. Uh,
Like I almost don't have the energy to even talk about this movie anymore, just because I've talked at you and with you about this movie for hours. I've talked with my roommate for hours. I've talked with my brother for hours about just how absolutely, like, if
garbage.
disappointment doesn't even begin to describe the feelings I have towards this movie. Like, I literally lie awake at night thinking about just how many decisions this movie made that just make me feel uneasy. Just make me wish I could rewrite reality to make this movie even marginally a better product.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing also too that bothers me is like it doesn't get like it's just like why like there's so many choices that were made. You're just kind of like really this is how we're gonna do Star Wars, and we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
not do this, and we're gonna do that, especially when you know like I think the thing that bothers me most is there's other people actively making Star Wars content that know Star Wars inside and out and live and breathe it, all the things. And we're like, you know what? Let's not trust them to do it.
Yep.
And it's like, why?
Yeah. And
Like,
like,
let's trust people who don't care about Star Wars to make the
yeah.
most important Star Wars. And it's
And
like,
like,
this is not good.
yeah, because like obviously Dave Filoni absolutely knows what he's doing. I think Mandalorian season 3 was a bit of a miss, but like overall, the entire Mandalorian project has been overall I think pretty good. Even Ahsoka I think was overall pretty solid. Uh, People that made Andor incredible. I know that came out after, but still, like stuff in the Star Wars universe can still be good. However, when that entire movie is building, then the entire Andor show is building towards the movie about them getting the plans to take out the first Death Star that then snowballed into them taking out the Empire. That doesn't matter anymore because the Empire just comes back later as the First Order, and then so like nothing they do in the show really matters, even though what's happening is incredible. So you haven't seen Andor, you totally should see Andor, but whatever. It's good Star Wars. But like the like just every there are so many aspects of this movie that could be interesting that the movie just refuses to make interesting. Oh, Rey is actually a Palpatine somehow. That could be interesting. Nope, it's not. She has lightning hands now. Doesn't she never comes back.
That's not.
This
That's
whole
also
idea
not
of
how the Force works.
not really. The whole idea of like a Force dyad that could have been interesting if it was set up earlier.
Yes.
Um, Chewie being captured by the First Order and on the same ship that Kylo was on, so Kylo's like last like remnant of his past that he can potentially try to I don't know, there's something interesting there if Kylo and if Ben Solo and Chewbacca had a conversation. But no, that's not how that. There's a spy in the First Order. That doesn't. Oh, it's this guy. Like I don't care. Like it doesn't matter. Luke's big, last stand didn't matter because no one came to her aid. Oh, Leia's passing kind of did it instead. Like that's so. I don't know. It's just disappointing.
Really disappointing.
Yeah, I
I
yeah,
feel like we can
I
just say
really do think
during the
Rise of
podcast.
Skywalker is a worse movie than BVS. Like it's
It's hard because I think both kind of have the same problem. They kind of,
same writer too, so that's why.
yeah,
Chris Terrio, terrible.
yeah. It's like both movies fail to understand kind of the lore and background of the characters and the world
Mhm.
they're writing in, and because
Yeah,
of that, the movie's just kind of awful automatically.
yeah.
But also, choices are doubled down on that don't make sense. That makes it somehow worse
Hmm.
because we're making like giant, like future altering choices that greatly affect further projects by cutting out certain characters or doing that, like like killing Jimmy Olsen or like just randomly killing the wrong Robin for some reason. Or
Hmm.
then, in the same way with Star Wars, just like, oh yeah, so this person's related to this person, even though that doesn't do anything. Or oh, this person's that. It's like, but that also doesn't change how the force works within this person. Also, that makes no sense.
Hmm.
Also, that's probably not how force ghosts work. Also, no.
Palpatine's the
Like, you know
villain
what I mean?
again, even though we had other options. Like you didn't have to
God,
do this. I
why?
don't know.
There's like just don't like. I would rather just there just not be a villain than Palpatine again. Like I would rather it just be the real villains or the friends we made along the way. Like that's
Honestly,
genuinely terrible.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, like Finn had absolutely no character development at all in that entire movie, entire
yes,
franchise. Really, Poe didn't
just
really do anything. Like it's just a
it's
just a bad movie.
just a bore. Like
Yeah,
it's just not good.
yeah, yeah. So, but that was your number one. It was not my number one.
Oh
My number
boy.
two. So this is another movie that my mom dragged us to. It you're not even gonna. I guarantee you're not gonna know what this movie is. I don't wish you to ever even know what this movie is, but you're going to learn about it anyway.
Oh dear.
The Odd Life of Timothy Green is my least favorite movie of all time. It
I've never heard of that.
was a Disney movie released in 2013, I think.
Okay.
And The reason we were dragged to it is 2013. I was in high school. My brother was about to go to college, and maybe it was 2012. It was somewhere around there. Like it was like my brother and I were, we're getting a little older, and we were firmly no longer children. But my mom, she is a very sentimental person. She she like she was, I guess, kind of like at that stage where like she still wanted to like hang on to that image of us both being her perfect little boys. So she drags us to this like feel good family movie to like have, I don't know, one last family experience. For that, I don't know what she was thinking. And like to kind of like vicariously through the kid in the movie experience us being kids again. I don't know, whatever. It's going to be hard to explain to you exactly why I hate this movie so much without you seeing it, but I don't want you to see it. I don't want to have another James Bond situation with you. You don't need to see this movie. But so, very basic premise is essentially um, Jennifer Garner and Uncle Owen. I can't remember the name. Joel.
Oh,
Yeah, what's his name? Joel something.
Edgerton.
Um, hmm?
Edgerton.
Yeah, Joel Edgerton. They are like they're trying to adopt, and like one of the interview questions is, why do you feel like you would make for good parents? And they answer that question by telling this very elaborate story that is the bulk of the movie. And like, oh, we find out that the mom, like they've been trying to have children, but it turns out that she's infertile. So they instead of instead of adopting, like they write all of these like wishes for the like how their perfect child will act, like on little scraps of paper, and put it in a box and bury it, and then arrange that night, and like the perfect child comes out of the ground.
Yeah.
And like this kid is like a 10-year-old kid with leaves on his feet because he's a plant kid, like comes out of the ground or whatever. um and instead of calling the police, they just accept that this kid is there. like like instantly, if I was the adoption agency lady, I'd be like, so you just kept him? You didn't try to find where he came from? You just kept him? It's like, well, there's a hole in the ground.
Well,
So
someone's
he's ours
scared.
now. It's like, what?
The finders keepers with a person. It's crazy.
Yeah. And the whole movie is about this kid like going around town and like making everyone in town's life better by like kind of at least vaguely doing the things that they wrote on the pieces of paper. And like as he does those certain acts, like a leaf will fall off his foot, and after the last leaf falls, he then goes back into the ground or something. But I know he's a child actor, but that kid was so annoying. The kid was annoying. The way all the characters in the movie react to him is just annoying. The parents are absolutely terrible parents. They never give any good advice ever. They actively admit to the adoption agency lady that they are terrible parents, and they gave great advice, and they would, if they had their own kid, they would do the exact same things again. Um, like all the characters who are like supposed to be the kind of rival characters, like like annoying neighbors or like annoying cousins, or like a strict coach played by Common for some reason. Like like they're just,
Comments in this movie?
yeah, Common's
What?
he's in Suicide Squad too, so whatever. Just they're just like they're more annoying than they need to be. Just nothing about this. It's a very unpleasant movie, and again, I can't really fully encapsulate just exactly how. I can't really like paint a perfect picture of just how uncomfortable this movie made me without you watching it. But I don't want you to watch it. I made Gavin watch it, and I feel bad for him. And so the kind of funny story. So this is going to come completely out of left field. Have you ever seen the George Lopez show?
Oh yeah.
You know, like the theme song of that show, like so. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 yeah, that.
Yeah.
So one time, my roommate was just like making dinner or like doing or washing dishes or something. He just like randomly started just like tapping that beat, and like that just made an offhand comment of like, "Oh, that song reminded me of a scene from this awful movie called All Life of Timothy Green." He's like, "What is that?" And he was like, "I think that's Disney Plus. We need to watch it." Because there's a scene in the kind of the middle of that movie where like annoying cousin, like the mom's sister or like cousin or something, who the whole movie has been like bragging about how great her kids are and like, and that kind of thing, to a mom, to Jennifer Garner, who is, who is infertile. So that's, that is rude. But she was like, so like she's bragging about like how great her kid is and how good he's gonna perform at the recital. And like she brags about how Timothy is also musical. Like, oh, he should come to the recital. So so at the recital thing, like Timothy gets up on stage, obviously like never having played an instrument before, picks up like a block and like a mallet and just starts like tapping the beat to that song on it. And then the dad like gets up and starts like kind of singing, and then the mom gets up and does the bop, 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 and then like they all get up on stage and start to just like do it together, and then the scene ends. Like we never cut back to the reaction of the crowd. Like there's no cheer, there's no on. Like the scene just ends, and they're all excited that they showed up. The aunt who looked like the one time it did cut to her, she looked embarrassed that it was happening. So now, whenever I hear that song, I only think of Life with Timothy Green.
That's what you think of?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Again, I don't recommend watching this movie, but like, but like that scene in particular, like might be worth seeking out. I'm not sure, but like, but the the point is, if I had just seen it just on its own in a vacuum, like knowing that it was a bad movie and watching it with someone who wanted to sit and watch a bad movie, I probably would have forgotten about it. I probably wouldn't even like register it as one of those bad. But like, oh, that was trash. Moving on. But because I was dragged to it, because my mom made such a big deal out of it, because she liked it so much, because it was the exact movie she wanted, and because we just had to sit there for almost 2 hours watching this uncomfortable movie in a genre of movie that we did not like, still don't like, we'll never like. Because I like action, I like thriller, I like the occasional comedy movie, but like, yeah, there were some like funny bits, but none of them it was actually funny. I don't like this like feel good, movie only exists for moms to cry at. Like that's not my kind of movie.
Well, yeah, because you're not a mom.
Right. That's what this movie was, and no, it's Like legitimately, it very well might be my least favorite movie of all time, just because I saw it at the absolute worst possible time for me to have seen it, and it just stuck with me as like this. This is not good.
That's awful. And again, like that's kind of like having your parents force you to watch it makes it infinitely worse.
Mm, yeah. Okay. Probably should have done this before I moved on to number one. But were there any honorable mentions that you wanted to just like bring up before we sign off?
I mean,
Or anything
so
else you
I mean,
wanted to talk
I
about?
so I had a couple of the Zack Snyder movies on here, but I kind of felt like maybe that's kind of encapsulate what I kind of feel about all of them for the most
Yeah.
part, or at least some of the main ones. So I kind of didn't feel the need to bring them all up. I had let's see what else was on there. I had another one. I think maybe I didn't. Maybe that was it. Maybe it was just
Hmm.
those. But yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of mine we actually kind of mentioned throughout Monsters U, the Percy Jackson
Yeah.
movie, Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Ice Age 3 is kind of dull. I saw that in theaters. Not as good as definitely not as good as one, and two is okay, but three was just not great. I watched Justice League twice in theaters. The second time was very bad. Yeah, but again, we already kind of touched on that whole saga. Yeah. Luckily, the vast majority of the movie experiences I've had are positive, but those are at least some of the not great ones that I have that we've seen. So.
Yeah, I mean, generally, if it's a movie I feel like is not going to be good, then I try to not go. But I mean, at the same
Mm,
time, there's always surprises and whatnot that happens, or ones that you're really expecting something solid, and
yeah,
then nothing. But
yeah.
yeah, we'll
Like,
see. I mean, we'll see. I'm sure, as these come out, we're gonna have some like, oh, I expected nothing, got everything, and then vice versa. We'll have things on this list. So.
hmm I mean, there are some movies like Black Adam where you expect absolutely nothing, and it turns out kind of cool. That can't happen. It's not like great, but it's not terrible like you thought it might be.
Yeah,
All right. Anything else you want to bring up or talk about?
that's all I've got.
All right. So with that, we will see you all next time.
Take care.